Hello everyone. So I had a request for just kind of a tour of my altar, and I thought that would be kind of fun to do, so I'm going to kind of try and do that right now. It's a perfect day because it's really snowy outside, and so a lot of light is getting reflected into this room, and normally this room is quite dark. So it's a lot brighter and prettier than it would normally be, which is always nice. The problem is I've been having a lot of problems with my bronchitis. It's been lasting for well over a month at this point, so talking is a bit of a challenge. So try to bear with me, but here goes. This right here is something I found online. It was a treat I got for myself. I don't buy many pre-made things for Wicca because so many Wiccan items that they sell are, I don't know, a lot of it is just stuff that they're selling to make money. So it's like, here's a blessed vial of basil that, you know, has a spell on it, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like, who's naive enough to buy this? But new Wiccans frequently do. So I usually don't buy Wiccan things, but this was just so useful to have a calendar of the Wiccan holidays just right there. I can see it. It's really easy to keep track of, because for a while I would have these moments where it would be like, oh crap, I bet there's a Wiccan holiday coming up. I can't remember. I don't know. I don't even know which one it is. And so when I started just last year, actually, I finally completed an entire wheel of the Wiccan holiday seasons, but I just started practicing that recently, and I wanted to have something to kind of just keep it handy because I really enjoyed practicing the Wiccan holidays. Celebrating them, prepping for them, reading about the history of them was just really interesting and really pleasant, and it was stuff that was kind of festive. I could sort of do around the house for the kids. They have no idea why I'm celebrating this stuff, which is kind of funny. It's like, hey, I made ice candles, which are really pretty, and I made this weird food, which is really tasty, and we're just gonna eat weird food and have ice candles. And it's like, okay, cool, Mom, whatever. And I'm gonna keep it that way. They don't know why I'm doing this stuff, and maybe one day they'll be absolutely horrified, like, Mom, you were doing pagan celebrations right under our noses. Or maybe it'll be kind of like, well, that's just Mom, that's her religion, and whatever. We'll find out somewhere down the road. Now, moving up, I've got this kind of out of the way, this thing right here. I actually made this, and when I say I made this, I mean I really made this. Let me take it down here so you can get a good view of it. These are feathers from a rooster that I slaughtered and butchered myself, and I saved a bunch of his feathers because he had obviously some really beautiful feathers, and I needed to make something to clean my altar with because, you know, a feather duster just seemed like a really good idea. I believe that was for Imbolc. I could be wrong. I have to go back and look at my pictures and, you know, stuff. I had the most fun making this. I washed the feathers, I like blow dried them, which was really kind of fun to watch, and I just put together all the pieces for it, and it was very fun to assemble. And then the moment I was done, I set it out to just kind of cool down because I had put the glue on and everything, and I turned around and my cat was trying to eat the feathers. And the cat loves to eat feathers, loves it, and I screamed at him. Another thing about my altar right now is that I haven't cleaned it in a while. We had I'm going to butcher these pronunciations. We had Halloween, let's be honest, that's what that is. And then we had Christmas, because that's what that is. And I looked at it, was like, we're doing enough celebrating for those holidays that I don't really feel a strong need to do anything particularly Wiccan. There's so much pagan symbolism that's crossed over through the years, generations, what have you, into those holidays. I'm just going to kind of, plus I was just really busy with the kids and everything. It was like, okay, I mean, this is good enough. You know, I feel like this is good enough. But usually every time one of these holidays comes around, I take the time, I do a thorough cleaning of my altar. I kind of ignored it for these two, so everything's super dusty, which I do not like. I have fake plants because the real ones kept dying, because this is like one of the darkest rooms of the house. So fake plants. And I'm really glad that I got them because it adds a lot of life and greenery, and it kind of helps create this beautiful atmosphere. And I don't have to worry about watering them, and I don't have to worry about dead leaves, and I don't have to worry about anything. But yeah, one of the things I usually use to clean it is this thing. I'm gonna probably end up cleaning like just off season, like I was like, I need to show people this altar. It's like, I need to clean this altar. So I might just show you guys a video once I'm all done cleaning this of what the cleaned altar looks like. Yeah, this altar clearly needs to be cleaned. It's really dusty. That's no good. Altar cleaning is one of my favorite things. It's just I don't have time for it very often. I think you guys can probably hear my son having a temper tantrum in the back. Yeah, there's a lot to keep me busy, so I don't always have the chance. But yeah, Wiccan altars, they collect knickknacks. And I love the aesthetic of starfish. These butterflies are from my husband. They were a gift he got me, which was really sweet. So I've got this whole like train of butterflies going down. And yeah, I am out of breath. But I do have, I don't know, a kind of a unique take on a lot of this. Like a lot of Wiccan altars, they say decorate it with things you found in nature, which is a really great idea, but you can only put so many pebbles on your altar before it just looks like a little rock collection. And I don't want to go out and buy crystals. I don't. They're so marked up, they're so overpriced, they're so heavily marketed, and it's always just kind of, it always just has this seedy feel to me where it's like, oh, this is a such and such crystal and it's going to give you, you know, healing powers or whatever. And I'm just like, I know better. I'm too old for that. Like, you cannot fool me. And so I wanted crystals. I wanted the bright and sparkly, because I think it's kind of like with stained glass. If you read up on the history of stained glass in churches, the idea is to create like this brightness and this sense of being in the presence of God. And honestly, having had kind of some of the experiences I had, like the time that I, you know, had that crazy vision, which was probably a result of chemicals in my brain just randomly being released for reasons that I'm not entirely clear on. Yeah, God was a being of light. And so it makes sense that people would be, I mean, for evolutionary reasons as well, I suppose, but just very drawn to anything that plays with light. And so I put these in. Oops, let's get that level. I put these in. I wanted to do starfish, but starfish, like if you read up on how starfish are acquired, like those cute little starfish skeletons that like really basic bitch housewives are attracted to. I'm not even going to pretend I'm not a basic bitch housewife. It's not really necessarily the best thing for the environment. So this lovely little thing right here, made out of resin. Still not great for the environment, but at least I didn't kill an animal for it. So that's cool. Here is my, oh, it's so dusty. I do need to clean my altar. And I will show you guys what the finished product looks like here. But this is my tarot cards. And I keep those for when I feel like I need them. Let's move down a little bit. This was my grandmother's. My grandmother died at the age of 99 and a half. And I ended up inheriting some of her jewelry and knickknacks. And this, of course, again, plays with light so beautifully. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And of course, I love the color. You can see my wall. And I thought it would be good to have something, you know, kind of ancestral, kind of tying me back through the generations. And that's very beautiful. And so that is something I put up there. This was something I made because, again, I don't like buying things that they make for Wiccans a lot of the time. There's some beautiful, beautiful artwork that they sell for Wiccans. And the problem with it is that so much of it is so marketed. And I don't like the way it's marketed. I don't like the feel of it. I don't like how overpriced it is. And it's like, I think they're hoping that someone is new enough to it, new enough to the religion, new enough to practicing it, that they'll just buy it. And I think a lot of people do. And I don't want to be one of those people. And so I don't. These are leaves that I purchased to decorate for my wedding to my husband. Hey, baby. Did you just kind of wander your way in here? Okay. All right. Well, let's see what we can do about that. My wedding, like as wedding decorations, and ended up not being used. The crystals, of course, were just cheap plastic crystals from Walmart, and everything else about it I made, like a lot of the threading and everything. I just did that myself. I had some of the wire handy. I had the thread. I think I had the thread from a different project. Anyway, I wanted to make something myself. I looked around at so many different pentacles, pentagrams, and just nothing spoke to me. And so I just kind of looked at it and was like, okay, well, I'll make this. If I ever find something really, really beautiful, I can retire this. But it just hasn't happened. I haven't found anything that really sings to me. Now moving over here, this is the second shelf that I was talking about, because I've got the first shelf, which is more abstracted spiritual ideas, spiritual things, more mysterious spiritual things. And then I go down to this shelf and I can see that I have a decoration. We just recently celebrated Christmas, and so of course I have some holly, and I also have been struggling with stomach flu and bronchitis, and I'm in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy, so I'm not moving nearly as fast as I would like to be with anything, and I've kind of just accepted that. But anyway, second tier is much more, it's like a level closer down to human understanding, the capacity for human understanding, and also just the physical plane of the world. And this statue, I was looking for something else. I was actually looking for a statue depicting the male deity, which I'm going to get to on the next shelf down. And I couldn't find one anywhere. I looked, couldn't find anything. And then one day I was looking and I stumbled upon this and I was like, that is absolutely perfect. That is something that I want. And so it kind of gets its own shelf of honor. I don't have anything Wiccan with it. I do have another one of my little plants, which just kind of brightens the area and gives it a little bit of life. It needs to be dusted very badly. Yeah, I don't want to mix my, and that's another benefit of having like multiple shelves. I'm not necessarily mixing religions as much, because I understand that a lot of Christians would be horribly frustrated at the idea of a bunch of Wiccan symbols sitting on a shelf with, Christian symbols. We'll just try to ignore the fact that the Wiccan symbol is sitting directly next to the Christian symbols. But that's one of the things about Wicca that I love so much. Your altar kind of becomes like this vision board for your spiritual ideas and spiritual thoughts. And it really, personally, I think it helps to really just organize ideas and thoughts. It helps to organize your mind a little bit better. And when you are practicing your religion, it gives you a place to go to feel kind of grounded and centered and kind of know what you believe on a very kind of visual and tactile level, which I understand actually, like a lot of religions do that. You've got communion in Christianity. You've got a lot of different rituals in a lot of different religions. I'm not coming up with any specifics at the moment because I'm out of breath. But yeah, a lot of religions try really hard to incorporate the senses into religious practice and to give people kind of a multi-sensory experience when they go to a church or a temple or what have you to practice. I don't want necessarily to practice a religion with other people anymore. I'm kind of done with that. I've dealt with enough of that, I think. And so this is something that's just sort of quiet, that's for me. And it gives me a lot of freedom to move around inside my own head and kind of grapple with my own ideas and thoughts and questions. And that's important to me personally. Now, this is the fun one. This is the one that's on the lowest level, and this is the most accessible and the most corporeal level. It's also the messiest because I interact with it the most. I do have natural, real things from my environment. Now I have some other coconut shells over here, and I actually use these for storing small things that I'm going to need to have access to or ready access to. Like I've got my AirPod case right there. Here I have this little star that I picked up, I think at a Walmart in my hometown back when I was like, oh goodness, was I like 20 years old when I bought that? It was a long time ago. Of course, I got some incense in it. I never really burn a full stick of incense all at once. Frequently, I'll burn just a little bit of incense just to get a little bit of smoke around, and then it's like, okay, that's plenty for me. Especially now that I have bronchitis that does not seem to want to ever go away. This right here is a pendant that I got for myself that I was wearing like every day for the longest time. I thought it added something to the little planter. It gives it kind of a little bit of brightness. In here I've got, again, I've been avoiding crystals, and so I've got sea glass instead. It's probably fake manufactured sea glass, but again, it gives you that play of light, which is something that you see a lot in religious settings. It's also very, very blued. And it's pretty. I have it all in the coconut shell. I had it spread around the altar, and I didn't know how I felt about that, so I moved it to the coconut shell for now. This is a seashell, oops, with a bunch of rocks. Let me set these down somewhere flat so you guys can see these. Actually, no, you can see them. These are rocks that I collected on a walk with my family when I was quite young. Like, I don't know how old I was, but I was quite young. And each of them has, like, they're different colors, and also they reminded me of the various elements. This one looks like it's made out of wood. It's not. This one's green, this one's red. Each of them was just very unique in its shape, texture, appearance. And I collected them all on this walk, and I was just talking with my family about them. And I remember that, like, just going on this hike with my family and collecting these. And so I've kept them through the years, and like for the longest time what would happen is I'd pull some box out of storage and they would be sitting in there, and I'd look at them and go, oh, I didn't realize I'd kept these. And then I'd put them in some other box or some other part of storage, and then later on I would pull them out and be like, oh, there they are. And so they have followed me since childhood. I would not be surprised if this collection right here is close to 30 years old at this point. I keep them still, and they do fit here. Let's see. This, I've got another fake starfish. A lot of altars, a lot of Wiccan altars, they put a lot of emphasis on, and I believe they pronounce it athame. I just read it, I never pronounce it. And I had this knife that I purchased for entirely other purposes. It did not serve those purposes at all. So I was like, well, you know, I'll stick it up here. At least it's there. It's like a token athame or athame or whatever. Again, I read it. I never pronounce it. Fake starfish, of course. This I bought when I was traveling as a dancer. It's one of the first cities I went to when I was traveling. And they had all these shops with all these different items for different religions. And I found that, and I was just absolutely overjoyed. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And so I purchased it, and I took it home with me. And, of course, used it to decorate my altar back then. And now it's, how many years old would that be? Goodness. Probably about 16 years old. It's old enough to drive a car. I've got offering bowls for the gods. This, of course, is the current working representation of the male deity. I didn't want to have a statue of a horned god on my altar. I just didn't. A lot of the stuff that is marketed for Wiccans, of course, is it just seems so commercialized. And so I bought that. My husband gave me all sorts of grief for it. He laughed at me quite a bit because that is a dog toy. It's like a dog chew toy, but it is a real antler. Moreover, it is an antler that was naturally dropped by the deer itself. So it's not like a deer was hurt for this. This is something that they gathered either from a herd of deer they had or from the woods around their house or whatever. And at that point, it's like, well, that's actually perfect. That's what I want. That's what I'm looking for. I do eventually need to find like a statue or something, but I just have not found anything. And in the process of looking for it, I ended up finding this instead. Now these, like I said, were devoted to the gods. This one is for the goddess because of its pink color, and you might notice some really dried up flowers right there. I put those there the day that we found out that my pregnancy was viable. And that was an offering that I left there that I will probably continue to leave there until the baby is born, and then I'll probably clear them out, replace them with something new. This is an avocado seed that I carved, and I've got some dried flowers and some seeds, obviously popcorn seeds, but again, they're seeds. One of the big things with the male deity that I've read so far, like an abstract male deity, when you're not going with anyone specific, is, you know, seeds and grains and all that stuff. And I was like, well, that's something small that would fit on this altar that I can do. And so that's kind of my go-to. It's like when I don't have anything else, seeds are good. Flowers are better, plants are better, other things are better, but it's the middle of the winter and this is what I can find. This one right here is actually from Thanksgiving because we were having a feast day and a celebration, and I looked at it, I was like, well, you know, I'm going to go put something on my altar. It's not a religious feast, but it is a traditional feast. It's a cultural feast, and so it only makes sense. My daughter actually was the one who introduced me to the idea of using a walnut shell. She found one that was perfectly cut in half and she loved it. And I looked at it and it was like, that would make a really excellent bowl. Particularly because as much as I like this one and its reddish hue and how big it is, and it just works as a wonderful offering bowl, I made it out of an avocado seed that had been frozen. And so the texture of the wood was very grainy and kind of sawdusty, and I didn't trust it 100%. So this is now my backup bowl. And over here, since I had never carved an avocado seed before, this is my original carved avocado seed that I made for my altar. It's not nearly as big or nice as this one over here, but it was a good first attempt because I didn't know what I was doing. And again, it's seeds, nuts, grains, what have you. I feel like I really need to expand on this part, particularly having a statue of a male deity or statue of something masculine. I do like the antler, but I would love to have something more. I just don't, and I'm not going to rush out and buy something that doesn't, as I say a lot of the time, sing to me. I really want something that just really speaks to me, and I kind of have this feeling that I'll know it when I see it, which might happen tomorrow or it might happen in a decade, but I have the feeling that when I do see whatever it is that I'm looking for, I'm going to see it and have this moment of just sparkling realization, like that's the thing I've been looking for. I do need to clean this because it's quite dusty. And that's actually a really pleasant process for me. I light up some of the incense over here and I play some, you know, music that feels very meaningful to me. And I just take some time to be quiet for a while, which doesn't happen very often in my life. And that is something that I definitely need to do because, again, I missed my usual cleaning at this time and about this time, and I probably am not going to wait all the way until February to get a cleaning in. It's getting noticeably dusty, so at this point it's high time I start doing some house cleaning on here. So I'm going to actually take some time and clean it up, and I'll try to show you guys the finished product. All right, so I took some time and I cleaned, and it's looking a little bit different now. I'm really happy that I took the time to do that. And it always just sort of brightens, I don't know, it brightens everything. It kind of gets me into a nice cleaning mood. It kind of gives me some quiet and some peace so that I can sort of calm down, which is always nice. And you'll probably notice that things are looking just slightly different. This shelf, of course, hasn't really changed. This one hasn't really changed either. They're just clean now. They're not covered in dust, which is always really nice. I still need to figure out a way to polish this, but I will get to that at some point. If there are any changes that are noticeable, it's going to be more in this area, which again is more the designated area where the spiritual kind of interacts with the physical. So this is where you're going to see change most often, because this is more the area where the interaction between physical and spiritual tends to be represented, as opposed to this area, which kind of tends to cover more of the institutionalized spiritual, and also just the borderline between the absolute mysterious spiritual, which is up here, and the more corporeal spiritual, which Christianity tends to shun anyway. But here we've got, I feel so refreshed. Like, this is such a refreshed little space now, and that makes me very happy. I cleaned this area up. In that process, I found this. And I knew this was in here, but it was when I first started asking myself questions about whether or not I was transgender. I didn't know anything. Like, I didn't have any information at all. So I put that in there. And in many ways, like most of the physical items that I put in here, it was a prayer to just help me come to a better understanding of what was going on, because I knew there was something and I was tired of pretending that there wasn't. And for a while I left it there after figuring out that I was an autoandrophile, and so a lot of transgender people would say I'm not a real transgender person, which is fine by me. But I kept it there just because there's so much turmoil in that community. And so it stopped being a prayer for me so much as a prayer for the community itself, which I think there's a lot of problems there. And I think people in the community probably would benefit from just as much help as they can get. And I don't mean that in a condescending manner. I mean that there's just a lot of problems there. There's a lot of people coming into that community who really do genuinely need, some help, any kind of help they can get. And I think a lot of them are aware of it. And so I hope that they find that help. However, I've answered my own questions, so it's time to take that out of the altar. I put the incense away and I just lit the candle because I'm afraid that if I lit the incense up right now, bronchitis would flare up. I'd start hacking and coughing. I wouldn't be able to finish this video, and it would just generally be rather unpleasant at this point. I still need to figure out something fun to do with all the sea glass, but I just kind of rearrange things too. The starfish is over here, the stones are over here. I still have this offering to Bastet, and I didn't mention it before, but I really like this seashell bowl because femininity is so often associated with water, particularly in Wicca, and it's got this lovely pinkish hue too, so it's just perfect. I also have this bowl and this bowl. I was going to phase out this bowl, but I really like the color and the shape of it, and so I think I'm going to keep this as a more generalized offering bowl, and this one can be more specific to the male deity. I want to have something for him. I don't know quite what. I was thinking maybe I should build a stand so that the antler can at least be, standing up instead of just kind of leaning over on the ground. I don't know how exactly I would build that, but something for it to set in, or to sit in. And it's so much fresher. There's not dust everywhere. I don't know if you can actually see it, but it looks so much fresher. It feels so much fresher and cleaner. And it's all just been slightly rearranged. And that's something that happens a lot more at a corporeal level of a person's life, far more often than, at the more spiritual, like the more mysterious spiritual levels of a person's life. So for example, up here, a lot of this stuff, there's usually not going to be big changes up here. And there's generally not big changes up here, although I did want to definitely have some holly leaves up there around Christmas time, just because it was very relevant. And in the process of cleaning this area up, I spent quite a bit of time thinking about how very far this deviates from a standard Wiccan altar. First of all, most standard Wiccan altars are on a flat surface. I don't have enough flat area space in my home for a flat surface like that. And also, there's not a lot of things that you would see on a standard Wiccan altar. I would not be surprised if a Wiccan looked at this and didn't entirely recognize it. Like, what are you doing here? And that's kind of one of the beauties of Wicca, is that there is a lot of freedom to add or subtract things from an altar. One of the mistakes many beginner Wiccans make, one mistake that I made as a beginner Wiccan, was I felt like I had to have everything the way that, you know, the altar design online portrayed it. So I'd look at like these altar layouts, and it's like, okay, so I have to have a candle here, and I have to have another candle over here, and I have to make sure that there's a bowl of water over here. And it's just stuff. After a while, it becomes clutter. If it doesn't actually contribute something meaningful to the altar, then it's not necessary. And so after that phase that many beginner Wiccans, myself included, get into, where they're like, okay, you've got your beginner altar with all the things that you're supposed to have and the representations of the 4 elements, which actually are kind of here. You've got your stones, your earth, your fire, you've got representations of water. It's there. And then I did, of course, have the incense for the air for a while, but also just these kind of crystals that are reflecting bits of light everywhere. It's there, but much more intentional, and it's much more in a way that speaks to me personally, because it is a personal altar, so that makes sense. Now, one thing that I do need to change very, very soon is I've got these 2 empty offering bowls, and there has to be something that I can add to them. And so that's a perfect excuse to go out on a nature walk sometime soon and see if I can't find some bright green leaves or something of that nature to put into those offering bowls for the god. And that's pretty much it. That's a pretty good introduction to my altar. It's not a typical Wiccan altar, but it is in some ways very much a Wiccan altar, in the sense that the longer you practice, the more kind of unique and individualized your altar can become. There are a couple other things that I have that I'd like to show you guys, and so I suppose I'll do that now. So this right here is I wouldn't call it a cauldron. It's actually a dish from a crock pot that got broken, and we didn't know what to do with it, but it was black, and it was also very shiny and reflective and quite lovely. And I filled the bottom with sand, and I have been using it as a place to burn my offerings. Obviously, my altar is quite small, so I don't have any large offerings to burn. It's been out in the elements because it lives outside, so it's probably a little dusty, but there we go. And there's a leaf that got into it. But usually I'll set this up and have a little fire and just kind of burn some of the offerings that I've left. I had to set it down because it got rather heavy for my arm, and I'm a little tired. But I'll usually set up a little fire and burn some of my offerings as I accumulate them, which, I mean, I try to make sure that my offerings are all things that aren't going to be too messy and also easy to dispose of generally. So, you know, things like seeds, nuts, leaves, flowers, very easy to just make a small fire and burn some of those offerings is a good way to dispose of them. But I thought I'd mention that because that is a part of my practice, and it's something that comes up quite regularly. And lastly, this is a statue of Bastet that I got from my mother-in-law. She owned it, and she was getting rid of a bunch of her old knickknacks, and this was just a knickknack to her. And so she gave it to me. And I had been researching setting up like a little kitchen witch altar in the kitchen area because I spend quite a bit of time in there cooking and whatnot. And I thought it would be lovely. I was researching kitchen witchery, and I thought that would be just perfect. I have the little statue, and it's a very domestic statue. Bastet can be a very domestic goddess, and it's perfect. But I need to figure out a place to put her. I do have some actual live plants in the kitchen because that part of the house does get sunlight. However, figuring out an area that I can put her in where she's not going to get knocked over or played with by the toddler is going to be a bit of a challenge. And I also want to find a nice offering bowl for her so I can leave little offerings. And since I'm out here, I think a little bit of greenery would be a lovely thing to decorate my altar with. So let's just... Here we go. Green and lovely. And I think that's everything. I'll talk to you guys later.